Okay, let's get started. My name is Joris Aarts from ClickWorks, another partner based in Belgium, we just discussed. And before I start, I want to learn a little bit more about you. Please raise hands in the room who consider themselves as real developers. Like, oh, almost everybody. Okay. Are there any people that are like one-man shops or lone wolves, warriors? Okay. So the others are working in a team or embedded or somewhere. Okay, great. Are there any real project managers here in the room? Like, I know Paul. Okay. Please help me out. So I'm going to be sharing some tips, but I also want to learn from you. There's a lot of expertise gathered together here. So, hello, welcome. Take a seat. As developer, who hates it to be like distracted from development joy? Yeah, because software development is hard, right? And especially tailor-made software. And the hardest part is probably not the layouts and the scripts and you know all that stuff. It's certified. But what's the hardest part of software development?
Figuring out what to develop in the first place.
But
Figuring out what to develop in the first place.
figuring out what to develop, okay.
Time management.
The management, the customers. So maybe from time to time you have the feeling that you are struggling, or I at least had in my career lots of points where I felt struggling. And we'll hold on till the end. A lot of those things. That I struggled with.
Cat's going to figure it out.
Turned out to be very easy if you know a couple of things. What are those things? That's my goal for today. A little bit more about me. So I started my career in 1996 as a software trainer. That was FileMaker 3 back then. So I teach people how to use databases. I've been doing development on Access and SQL Server, but in 2005, I chose to start ClickWorks and I chose to focus on the FileMaker platform solely. And I never regretted that choice. So I literally started on my own. We are now a team of 15 developers. I'm certified in all versions of FileMaker since version 7. Welcome. Hi. Take a seat. I'm one of the co-organizers of the European conference. So after the pandemic, we picked up the tradition of having like live conferences. So we had 2 years ago a first edition in Malmö. Last year we had one in Belgium, in Antwerp. Hello. I'm a father of 2 teenagers, and my passions are sailing and playing guitar. I'm an aspiring like jazz guitar player. This is our team back at ClickWorks. It's international. You saw Ananya on the opening keynote, the Indian girl, John in the UK. And so this is engagement. Now my agenda for today. I'm going to walk my talk. I'm going to manage this talk as a project. So we are going to rearrange priorities based on your choice. So the only mandatory topic or what I want to explain first is on the left. The other topics we can do them in any order. I have too much material to fit in 1 hour. So is there any of these subjects that you immediately say like, yeah, this is important for me? Communication, development habits, time management, project management, risk management, growing your business.
6 and 7.
6 and 7?
4 and 6.
3?
4 and 6.
So 6, 7.
All of them.
All of them. The project management one is the biggest one, but that hasn't been mentioned, so we keep that for the end. Okay. Let's start with the first one. So maybe first write this down. 6, 7. And 4, 3, right?
Yep.
Okay. Good. All right. The first one, develop yourself. What I'm going to do is throw a lot of stuff at you. This session is meant to inspire you, to spark ideas, and my slide notes contain plenty of links to source material. So it's not meant to go in depth, it's meant to touch on very different topics and give you that wow experience, like, hey, maybe I can go look and learn more about this. So in the learning process, in the process from growing from incompetent toward competence and unconscious and conscious, the trajectory goes from like being unconsciously incompetent to what? Consciously
You don't know what you're
incompetent. Okay, that's where we're going. It's called awareness. Once you are aware of a certain topic, you can start learning more about it. And eventually you can become a master. So unconsciously competent in certain things like FileMaker layouts and scripts. So you made the right choice. You discovered already that there's more in life than just development. There's more around the software project than just building the layouts and the scripts, okay? And this is where I aim at. I aim at this awareness moment, so to inspire you to present you some of the things that I wished I had known like 20 years ago. Okay? That said, back to the agenda. First topic, develop yourself. What I mean is we are developing software for our clients. How much time do we invest in ourselves? Right? And there's a lot of things here. I've been lucky to read this book at the age of 30 or something. It was one of the best reads I ever had. The Power of Positive. Learn to say no. Software development has a lot to do about managing scope, about fencing off certain things you are going to do, certain things you are not. And if you have like that kind of customer that always comes in with new feature requests and last minute changes, how do you deal with that? You need to learn to stand your ground and say no to certain things. Hello, welcome, please join. Okay. So this is a highly recommended read. Maybe it's a European thing or even a thing in Belgium, but we tend to be shy, we tend to be not always so secure. So, you know, lots of people that associate saying no with something negative. You're denying it. You're literally blocking out. Well, the trick is to think about saying no as a positive thing. How do you do that? Your no is not just a random no. It's rooted in a yes. It's rooted in a certain belief, in certain values, core values, in certain principles, in certain North Stars or Pole Stars that Pete Nelson calls them. So you have like a vision, a strategy, okay? And that strategy determines what you say yes to or no. And once you learn to think about saying no as a positive thing, it becomes much easier. Because you do that out of vision, not to deny certain. Okay? And the beautiful result is that there's a lot of yeses emerging from that. Saying no is a positive thing, leads towards more free time, spending time with your family, not working overtime, that kind of thing. Something else. You probably recognize this kind of conversation between us. Biases. Why is your client following you all the time, asking you questions all the time, adding more features? Why? Is that a mean person? No. It's because clients are biased. They oversimplify things. They tend to think of software development as being easy. Oh, yeah, just add a button here. No problem. So there are a lot of biases, but in the software context, these are some typical ones. Like, clients typically underestimate effort required to build a thing. They believe that when they explain something to you, that you understand it immediately and that you know exactly what to build. That's their assumption. Another thing, developers. Developers are very bad testers. Why? They are biased. It's their own code. It's their baby. They frustrate. They cannot hit it. I have some examples later. Developers are rarely good at budgeting. It's same thing from like coming home from vacation. You only remember the positive things, right? So if you think back of your project from 1 year ago, you only remember the great layouts and scripts that you built, not all the annoying bugs and then the hard times. And that's why asking a developer to make a budget, he will typically underestimate. Always think, oh yeah, I'll build that script in 2 hours. Yeah, it was a buggy script, but he forgot about it.
2 more days to debug it.
Yeah, exactly. Confirmation bias. Blame the user. So as a developer, if a user says, I found a bug in your software, you try to reproduce it, you cannot reproduce it. Stupid. That's a confirmation bias. Okay? And then you forget that there's another button on another layout that also leads to the same script. And
Right.
that's that. Assumptions, overconfidence, and also my code is the best, correspondence bias. If your code breaks, that means that, oh yes, yeah, I had a bad day and there was this and there was that. But if Dave's code breaks, it's like, it's Dave again. Something like that. It's correspondence bias. There's a whole science around this, and I added some links to if you want to learn more about this. So your brain is still that prehistoric fight or flight brain from the ages that we needed to hunt our food. And so we need to fight against certain basic reactions, basic reflexes that we have. Another example of this, for instance, this is a layout of a random FileMaker application. And so from a client's perspective, it's a very logical thing to ask, like, hey, can you add me a couple more buttons here to the right? Very logical question, right? Well, this is what the developer sees. Three more buttons.
Just stop
No,
over
because
there.
this layout is meant to fit on an iPad screen, and on their giant Mac desktops, there's no problem adding buttons. But yeah, and so you easily see how you can get friction between developers and customers. So a lot of communication is needed to overcome that. A couple of solutions, how to mitigate these risks. Having dedicated testers. People that are really eager to break someone else's code. They're not that kind of people. It's good to have them in your team. Hacking challenges, that's what we did at ClickWorks. I have an example later. For budgeting, planning poker. Planning poker is a game where you gather with a couple of developers, you study a certain feature, then each one raises a card with the estimate amount of work. It can be t-shirt sizes, like small, medium, large. It can be numbers of days, numbers of hours. And if there's a big gap between two estimations, then you start talking. Then you figure out what can probably be the issue. It can be that you misunderstood something or that there may be hidden technical difficulties. So budgeting is typically not done on your own. I never make a budget anymore on my own. I always consult a couple of our seniors. Keep track of your time and use that for future predictions, future projects. I typically use the database design report for it. So, oh yeah, we built that project 3 years ago, which was very similar, which has like the same amount of layouts and scripts in it. So we built that in that amount of hours. Use that knowledge to make projects. Use questions, checklists when you go to a client. Make sure that you ask the right questions. Which operating system are you on? What's the screen size you use? Do you want to use it on a mobile phone or not? That kind of. And detect and remove all kinds of assumptions. So easily said, but that's the hardest thing. But if you're detecting your team and developers saying, yeah, but I believe that, check it. Always check it. Assumptions. Now this is a picture of a hacking challenge we did at ClickWorks. So we gathered together in like a house, and the game was, or the challenge was, this is the senior developer, Jan. He's also at this conference, a very tall guy that you probably noticed walking around. That's one of our best senior developers. And so the challenge was, these are the juniors. The challenge was to break his code. So he had a project, was about to go live in 1 week. And he was very confident, like, come on, guys.
Go ahead, make my day.
Well, man, zooming in a little bit. This is the junior developer. 6 months into FileMaker, he just managed to break his code.
Nice. That's the problem.
So that was a little hackathon we did. Another thing, the sunk cost fallacy, probably you already know. A certain direction. We invested so much time, effort in it, it's very hard to go back. One example is the selector connector model. It's very useful in certain circumstances, but if your project grows and performance is key, it's probably not the best. So we had to crawl back from that approach. That are very hard talks with your clients, right? You spend a lot of time, effort in building a beautiful solution, discover like, hey, this selector connector thing not really working. We need to restructure things. So That's one thing. Then, on a whole other topic, physical health. As a developer, it's not only your brain, it's your whole body, and your brain works better if your body is fit. So it's only after seeing a friend suffering from kidney stones that I learned to drink lots of water during the day. It's very easy. Just put a big bottle of water on your desk. By the end of the day, it will be empty, and you will feel fresher and more awake. Other things. We started during the pandemic at ClickWorks having a gym session. Every Friday at noon, we have like an online coach, and she does two kinds of exercises. Core strength, like training your abdomen muscles, which relieves your back and your neck. And she does mobility, sessions, like stretching muscles that you even didn't know you had. Since then, I have no more pain in my neck. I used to have this typical phenomenon, this typical neck pain from sitting behind the laptop all the time. So that's that kind of stay healthy and you develop better software. Stay positive. We encounter a lot of negativity in developing. Stay positive. The typical thing is you look back at your code from 1 year ago and oh, that's ugly. Oh, what was I thinking? Oh my God. It's a good thing. It means that you learned something in the meantime. You made progress. So it's stay positive. Pareto principle, 20-80 rule, 20% of the causes lead to 80% of the results. It applies in various domains. Okay? Where are you putting your energy in? And try to focus on that. And talk with your customer in terms of 20-80 and to define priorities. Like bug fixing, Microsoft doesn't fix all the bugs they come. Software, they focus on the 20% bugs that lead to 80% less support calls. A couple of lessons I learned from sailing. On a sailing vessel, on a sailing boat, every item, every rope has a unique name. You don't say like, pull this rope. No, you say like, pull the mainsail, or pull the jib, or hoist the sail. You know, everything has a unique name, and I carry that over to what we do in FileMaker. So naming conventions are a very big thing at the so we are very strict about naming. Often the hardest part of building a script is finding a good name for it. Or fields are a typical thing. Field names are very important. Good field name. It can easily take 10 minutes to figure out how to name a field.
Or you might rename it several times.
Or rename it. FileMaker is very graceful, allows you to rename fields, but it's important. Don't accept like these lazy random field names, temporary field names, like month 1, month 2, that kind of things, or temp 1. It's important because these things tend to stick forever. Fields are the source. Everything draws from that. Okay. Other life lessons, we have a climber in our team, Lucas. He said like one rule from climbing is one backup is no backup. And my brother, he runs results at the conference, he runs marathons. He says running a marathon is not hard. It's just training day by day by day by day, small steps. And before you know it, in 1 year you can run a marathon. So, lessons from guitar playing. Have your instrument ready. If you want to practice, if you want to progress, don't put your instrument in a box and stow it away. No. Put it somewhere that you can easily pick it up and start. And that was the first topic. Develop yourself in under 20 minutes. Okay. So, we have the other things. I'm starting with 6, risk management. Please also tell me if I'm kicking in open doors, because there's a lot of stuff that probably you know more about than me. Okay, risk management. Meet the risk officer. Do you know that, Captain? That's a thing in the US. Calimero. It's something in Europe. It's like, yeah, it's an animation with a little bird complaining all the time, like, oh, everything will break, oh, everything will go wrong. And so sometimes you need to wear that hat. You need to look at your projects and try to think about all the things that can go wrong. Write them down and then decide whether or not you are going to deal with this risk. So there are different types of risks: compliant risks, legal risks, GDPR is a thing in personal data, strategic risk, reputational risks. If your software crashes, clients cannot connect to a certain website or something, that's reputational loss. But the most we deal with are operational risks, like your software breaking and then the customer not being able to continue. How do you deal with that? Well, this is a typical matrix you will encounter in all risk management courses. You're going to measure probability, and it can be like exact numbers, or can be things like rare or almost certain. So the probability of a certain event, and then the impact or the severity of a certain, from insignificant towards catastrophic. For these catastrophic things, you typically need an insurance. You're probably not going to deal with it yourself, like a fire or a flooding or something. That's what you need insurance. So you're not going to deal with all of this, but your client's assumption is that you will. So you can use this matrix to have a good talk with your client about what are you going to deal with and what not. Like these insignificant possible risks, probably just cannot even be unacceptable. Green could be acceptable risks. The purple over there in the other corner could be unacceptable risks. If you're starting a software project and you're almost certain that it will lead to a catastrophic outcome, that's probably a project you won't accept. Like you won't do a ticketing system for an airport with FileMaker. It's a kind of project. It's a kind of risk you want to take with the platform. And the others, like the orange and the red, these are risks that you can discuss with your client. How are we going to mitigate those risks? So one example in a hospital context is like the kinds of risks that a nurse can deal with, or types of risks that needs a leading specialist. This is a tool to communicate, to talk. A very good read. It's an very old book, but it's still a very good read. Managing risks on software. Here's a link. So this was a rather short topic. If it's okay, I'm moving on to the next one. 7, growing your business. We are at the conference. Who has prepared elevator pitch for this conference? If you want to grow your business, prepare an elevator pitch. What's an elevator pitch? It's like by the time you write an elevator, explain what you do, how you make a difference, what the impact can be on the client, and what action is needed to take the next step. So you can, there's a lot of literature about it. The typical elements in an elevator pitch, yeah, what I just mentioned. What do you have to offer? How do you make a difference? What are you looking for? Learn it and use it in situations like these. On the grow business. Make sure that if someone asks what you're doing, you can respond and under. Have you heard of such thing like a luck surface area? That's one of the things we with ClickWorks are doing a much better job than a couple of years. We were already building great software for almost 20 years now, since 2000. But we are not telling a lot about it. And since 2 years, we hired someone that does now the social media for us and so on. So we are not doing anything differently than we did before, but we are talking more, which leads to much more opportunities. Look at me, I'm speaking here at this conference. That's increasing your luck. So it's not only doing things, but also about it. If you want to grow your business, you need to learn to delegate tasks. Stop doing everything on your own by yourself. And it's very hard because I also came from like a one-man shop to even the hardest part is like other people do things differently. Sometimes better, but at first we'll deny that. We won't accept it. Maybe nag those people like, hey, gaming conventions were a thing where I went crazy about. Like, okay, this developer puts his comments in the script in a slightly different way. Let loose. Delegating is about letting loose. Accepting that someone takes another approach, makes mistakes, probably needs more time to build the same thing that you can build in 1 hour. Accept it, and you will be surprised in a couple of weeks. They will come with approaches and things that you never. That's one of the most beautiful things about growing our team at ClickWorks is like discovering every day these brilliant people doing things, but it has a lot to do with. This was also a very short topic, so we have plenty of time to go to number 4, time management. There were a couple of people that were like sole business owners or developers, and it's like you have a one-man shop. Other people that are working on their own. Okay. I was in that position as well, and it can be very hard because for development you need to go deep. You need a couple of hours of focus, concentration. But as a salesperson for your own company, you need to be available and ready to pick up the phone if a client calls. That can be very. It's one of the benefits of working in a team. You can have someone dedicated to picking up the phone, other people. Okay. If you don't have a team, you need to kind of create that. That you can work a couple of hours in a sprint without being disturbed. Putting off your notifications, turning off your phone, not answering calls, not answering emails, not being distracted for a couple of minutes. Because if you get distracted and you were like wired in like a big script, the time you need to go back to the focus you had before is easily 15 to 20 minutes. I know Microsoft Office has this kind of tools. They have like a default setting focus time in your agenda. So there are all kinds of software tools that you can use to fence off this do not disturb time. And if you tend to pick up the phone all the time, one other lesson I learned is that some problems solve themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
You may have this client that calls every 5 minutes. This is working, this is working. I had often this case where I call them back after my focus time in the afternoon or something. Oh yeah, no, I found it. Yeah. So some problems solve themselves. The thing about to-do lists, keep track of things. If you are that kind of person that has things running in your head all the time, I'm like that. Write them down as soon as possible. Lying in your bed to think, oh yeah, this feature, this bug, I need to do this. Take a piece of paper, write it down, and you will create like mental rest. Okay. If you create a to-do, do not just write a cryptic title. Use the opportunity when creating the to-do of describing as much context as you have at that time, because now you're thinking about all those things. Write them down, because in 1 week's time, you will see that to do it and say, what was I thinking? What's this about? Yeah. So now that you are fresh into it and you have all the information, write everything down. Do not forget to focus on the big goals as well. So what I do each morning when I come into the office, the typical thing to do is like open up your laptop, go to your inbox, right? Well, what I try to do is when I drive to the office, I think about the 2 or 3 bigger things that I want to achieve at the end of the day. And I write them down and put them next to it. So if I tend to get back to my email inbox and looking at all those calls from there, I look at that list and I try to stay. Another trick can be like stopping earlier and shaving off 1 hour each day to work on things that you really like, that you really love. I typically stop at 4 in the afternoon, and then I focus on learning things. I focus on nice studio kitchen, that kind of things. Things that bring joy, that bring fun, so that you're not in the daily routine of debugging all the time or solving problems for others.
You know, I think on that time blocking kind of up front, like really getting aware of when is a good time for you to do certain kinds of things. Because the opposite of what you were just talking about, things that we dread or that take a certain level of inception energy, don't try to do that
In the afternoon.
in the wrong time, typically in the afternoon for me at least,
Yes,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That should
Very
be a
good point.
first thing.
That's
Very
right.
good point.
And plan it the day before.
Yes.
And by the time you get to it, your mind will have already
Yeah.
accepted, and it's not so hard.
Excellent tip. Yeah. Plan. Yeah. Choose the right time. Another example is having difficult meetings with
Yeah.
clients or co-workers. Don't do them right before lunch because everybody's hungry and everybody's. So, yeah, finding a good time slot is very important. Work-life balance, especially as a developer, what I keep repeating to my junior developers all the time is if you're stuck in a script or something, take a break, go outside, take a walk, and probably within the 5 minutes that you are outside, you will pick up the solution. Don't keep staring at your screen all the time. Your brain doesn't work like that. Your brain needs his pauses, regular pauses. So I keep telling them, like, go outside, stop working, go away from your laptop. Okay?
Go sailing.
Go sailing. Yeah, exactly. Ask help. If you're looking more than 20 minutes into a certain thing, ask around or go on the forum and ask a question on the forum. Working overtime can never be a standard. Find yourself in the position where you are day after day, throwing in your personal time, then there's something wrong. That's bad management. If you have a manager above you, it's time to have a talk. How often have you seen that situation where one person leaves the company and is replaced by 2 persons? Same job. Because it grows over time, of course. You take on more and more tasks, but there's a limit to that. That's saying no. Right? Saying no to a customer request or process request. Are you going to do that over the weekend? My roots, my strategy is that I need that time off every weekend. If I don't have that time, I cannot keep on doing this job for like 10 more years. That's your yes, and allows you to say a positive, deliver a positive. It's often the most engaged people that fall into this trap of working overtime. But everybody is better off if you have a good, healthy working life. So plan around things that you really care about. In my case, it's sailing and playing the guitar. We have this rehearsal every Thursday evening. I get invitations. Sorry, Bridget. Thursday. When it's morning for you, it's like Thursday evening for me. But not 1 hour later, or I would have to say no because that's my precious rehearsal time with the combo. That these are things that fuel me, that give me energy. The office should be a safe space. If it's not, if you're threatened, feel pressure, it's probably time to move on. Another job. A couple of links also in the slides. Have fun. Pet projects. We adopted the vision that Google also has. They have like these time that employees can use to work on their own pet projects. And we try to do that at ClickWorks as well. So Friday is a day that there are never any client meetings and people are allowed to do research, learn things, build things. And one example is our add-on, Easy Draw. It's actually the result of one of those pet projects from developers. Okay, let's try if I can put this JavaScript drawing canvas in FileMaker. Build. So these were my tips on time management. Ooh, we have some time left, so topic 3, development habits. Okay. Any questions so far? Are you enjoying this? Yeah, you're still in the right spot? Okay, thank you very much. Development habits. Where do you put the exit condition in a loop? That's one of them. Tools make all the difference. I couldn't live anymore on my Mac without the syntax from the MBS plugin, for instance. FM perception. Instead of going to the database relationship diagram all the time to figure out how things are related, use FM perception. You can have it open on another screen and you don't need to annoy your co-workers because you're always in the defined relationships fiddling around. Okay? Especially if you're taking over a legacy project, before you touch anything, use tools like Inspector Pro or FM Perception to check dependencies and to check references to objects. Can I delete this layout? Oh no, there's a button on somewhere else that refers to this. Always use this kind of checks. Yeah, these are just a couple. This is not a commercial presentation, but so there are a lot of tools that can help you with your FileMaker development. Naming conventions, I already mentioned it. Very, very important. That's foundation for a solid multi-year software. We use anchor buoy. You know that, right? We have tried some of those hybrid approaches. It never works. We always tend to go back to strict anchor. Even in smaller projects, and where you think like, oh no, I don't need this anchor buoy. I just tie everything together. Small projects grow big. The only way to maintain a bigger project is we tend to document as close as possible to the source. So we use the field comments a lot to document fields. At least a date, the name of the developer who created the field, or the script, or the custom function. And then a short description, one line, what it's about. If you cannot write down a short description of what it is, it's probably you didn't figure it out completely, especially with scripts. You cannot say in one sentence what your script is going to do. Wait a little longer before starting the script and think about it. We put hidden objects on layouts to document certain behavior, especially if there are hidden or conditional show hides in layouts. We tend to put like placeholders. By the way, this is the document that you can know. It's available for free on our website. There are two naming conventions, open guidelines, and as you can see, we started this 2004 version. It's very old, and we review it over time. Okay, but once, and we do that with the entire team. So we lay it on the table, we discuss it like, are we still doing this? Are we still keeping up with this standard? If not, we throw it out. Simplifications. Okay, but once we agree on a certain standard, it's written in stone for the next year. We discuss it, but then we need to stick. Yeah, you know that stuff. It's about naming tables, custom functions, table names, for instance, indicators for sorting in the relationship, around that kind of stuff. So documenting your own code is something that you do today. Future self will thank you. If you are alone as a developer, use comments, because 1 year from now you will look back at your ugly code and wonder like, what was I thinking? So at least write down the intention. Do not describe like this is a loop and I'm looping over every record. No, you can see that. You see you're looping, you see you go to next record. Document what you want to do, what you are doing. When testing your scripts or your functions, there are a couple of tricks. Test with edge cases, especially when user input is required. As a tester, it's try invalid input, negative values, empty values, very high numbers, very low numbers, things you don't expect, invalid dates, etc. If you need to figure out where a certain problem occurs, and it's very hard to find it, like somewhere in a record set, there's a certain record that makes your script crash, and you cannot figure out which record, then the binary approach is a good trick. Like take a copy of a database, throw away half of your records. If the problem still occurs, it's in that half. Okay? Then throw away again half of the records, and that's the quickest way to narrow down to a specific record or a specific layout. Testing scenarios in bigger projects, like we have this project that we work on for years with teams of 560 developers, so thousands of hours a year. We write down little testing scenarios in our ticketing system. So not only saying like, okay, this feature is complete, it's delivered. No, as a user, how can I test this feature? Well, go there, click this button, please. Takes a lot of time, but it pays itself back. There are dedicated testing organizations. You can hire people to do testing for you. We worked with one of those organizations, and that was one of the smoothest go-lives we ever had. So they pick out every little detail, every little mistake. Data migration, develop with realistic data sets.
On the testing organizations,
Yes.
was that anything specific to Claris or FileMaker, or just third-party testing?
Yes, they do whatever. They are specialized in writing out testing scenarios for you, of course, and they literally describe what the tester needs to do. Click this, click that, enter this, enter that. And so they follow that script, and you can do like, how do you call it, end-to-end testing, so you can regularly run your software through that process again. These are typically people that are very, very focused and very good, very apt at finding little details. Data migration, when we are building a software and we know in advance that we need to carry over data from legacy software, we do that at the same time that we develop the new software. A typical mistake from years ago was to keep that for the end. Like, okay, the software is ready now, we need to figure out how to import all that data from the old software. We do that at the same time. So that while building the new, shiny new FileMaker application, we are already sitting on the real data. So we can test with test performance, see the impact of certain decisions on the real data. Also for the client, it's much easier to feel at home in new software when the client immediately recognizes data. So migration scripts and even dedicated migrator files are part of the development from the start. If you don't have migrations, avoid ugly testing. Developers are very good at making these jokes between each other and having these funny things in names, name fields, and so on. It's silly. It never gives a good impression if you're in a meeting with a client and then such an ugly record pops up. So try to use realistic design. There are websites that can deliver randomized lists of names, addresses, and so on. You can use ChatGPT to generate mock data. So this is one example, mockaroo.com. First 1,000 entries are for free. If you want larger data sets, you pay. You can literally say, I need the first and the last name field, I need an email field. So it generates a CSV file. Take care. A couple of other development principles. Do you know the first one? Yaki? Nobody? Ain't gonna need it. You ain't gonna need it.
You ain't gonna do it.
That's the first filter. You ain't gonna need it. That's against your business, of course. But you could also say you ain't gonna need it in version 1. You keep it in version 2. Okay? Try to focus. Once you have that focus, keep it simple. So if it looks similar, well, let's focus on the similar things first, and then try.
Do not repeat.
Yeah, do not repeat. So. So this was the development habits section. I still have 15 minutes
Quick question.
left, right? Yes.
You have a production system, but you need to make changes to it. Are you going back to a development system and then somehow porting the data, or how do you do that?
Depends on the risk.
Porting the function?
Depends on the risk, and we discuss with the client. If it's a system where only 1 or 2 users working on and only occasionally entering new data, we discuss the window in which we will do fixes, and we may do fixes live. But the default approach will be a development server and use data migration to deliver the new version.
Data migration tool?
FileMaker standard data migration.
Auto.
It's included with
Auto. It's free.
It's free.
Just go with Auto.
Oh yeah, you can use Auto Migrator for bigger deployments. We use Auto.
Which uses the DMT under the hood.
Yep.
It uses the DMT under the hood of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
So
yeah. So Auto uses the data migration tool. Command line script. Other questions? Okay. Shall I go on?
Project management.
Project management. Okay. Yeah, 15 minutes can do. Project management in 15 minutes, why not? We used the pandemic to do online courses, and one of them was a project management course of several weeks we took with the entire team. Do you have a mission statement, or do you write down the mission statement at the start of a new project? Can you say in one sentence what your project is about? These are the typical ingredients for a mission statement. Who are we building this for? What do they do? What are we building? Purpose. What's the old thing? What's the difference we are making? What's the advantage? So I have one example here for cardiologists in hospital X who take cardiac echoes. We build a FileMaker app that allows to enter all the parameters of those echoes in a clear manner. Instead of the current Excel file, our app provides a secure, consistent, and user-friendly environment of managing that data. Here you go. That's your mission statement. Define measurable goals. So instead of saying like no more crashes, talk about an uptime of 99.99%, something like that. That's what hosting companies. Instead of saying, oh, my application works in the cloud, could say launch time over one of less than 2 seconds. Measure that. Okay? Instead of saying we're going to improve the efficiency, you could say like, okay, we can get this job done in under 5 minutes. And new software. These are measurable goals. The advantage of having measurable goals is that you can look back, you can check them out, and have an easier talk with the client, like, hey, we delivered. As clients tend to look forward all the time. You delivered great software, but they are already looking at the next step, and they forget about looking back, like, hey, we achieved this. That's something I need to actively remind clients about, hey, this is what we already built. Remember last year you had crashes every month. It's good. Okay. If you look back, celebrate. Celebrate your success. This is a real picture from one of our customers. They were celebrating their 1 millionth article number in the database. Or the big data. They celebrated. That's good. Your software is stable. Your software can handle large amounts of data, and it's still in production. So celebrate your success. So we try to celebrate every go live in every project. So almost once a month we have cake or something similar at the office. So we already discussed risks. So there are typical kinds of risks. Can you mention a few risks in a software development context? This is one, performance. There are others. Connection. Network connection. Yep.
Data integrity.
Data integrity.
Security.
Security. Others? Scope change. It's an important one. Scope creep. Scalability.
Efficiency.
Sorry?
Scope deficiency.
Scope deficiency.
There's things that ought to be in the scope, but they aren't.
Okay.
And if they're not, the software won't work.
Oh, yes. So things that you overlook.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Something called discovered.
Yes.
Yes, discovered requirements.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of literature about discovering, feature discovery and learning not to overlook things. Yeah, exactly. Thanks. Write down user stories. If you are defining features, you can say like, as a typical kind of user, I want to do this, so that, and so on. Persona, this is what Claris uses internally. Also, we had the opportunity to work with Claris a couple of years ago to work on those template files they did. And they defined persona. So we were talking all the time about a certain Paula and what the assumptions of Paula were. She was like an average FileMaker user. She knows how to build scripts, custom functions, but not like advanced APIs. So that was Paula. So that was a persona. And that helps you understand the needs from the perspective of a certain user. I already mentioned planning poker for budgeting. So never do a budget on your own, but always talk to someone else and compare the results of your estimations. If there are differences, talk about them. Helps you to detect things that you tend to overlook, indeed. You can do that in t-shirt sizes, points, hours, days. At ClickWorks, we usually do hours, but can be different. I do t-shirt sizes if a client asks me like a ballpark estimate. Like, okay, then I say like, I never mention any hours then. I just say like, yeah, that's an extra large, that's a small one. And it helps clients understand that what they ask is reasonable and allows them also to make a mental picture of the effort. So planning poker, this is not a joke, these cards exist. These odd numbers are designed specifically to trigger a special kind of like thinking or reasoning about clients. If you do a budget estimation, did you forget something? Did you forget about the meeting time required? That was one thing I overlooked in the start of my career. Like, yeah, I'm just building this software now. A lot of talking. So typically 20%, 5% time. Did you include time for setting up, just using your basic template? Copying it, renaming it, rebranding it, that kind of stuff. Did you include time for UX design, project management, data migration, deployment? So these are all those extras. It's not just building your script, it's all the tasks. There's such thing like a critical path. If it's a time-sensitive project, there is software that can help you to detect which tasks depend on each other. And one task can delay the entire project. Don't take it. So that's how it critical path. Discuss return on investment with your clients, because it's a huge investment, custom software, and investment upfront that pays itself back over the years. But you can measure that, measured in resources needed or errors avoided, security risks, etc., etc. So one example is like we built a 50K software for a team of HR managers, and they spent 1 hour a day gathering data, and 2 days at the end of the month preparing a monthly salary report. It was a budget of 50K. And then we calculated that with the time they saved by using our software, that investment would pay itself back within 3 years. So that 50K is returned within 3 years, based on the effort, reduced effort. Measure your progress, do time tracking. Are you aware of where you are in your development process? Are you halfway done? Are you finished? And the devil is in the details. It's most often at the end of the task that all those ugly details start to pop up. I'm going to move a bit faster. I have 5 minutes left. Burn down rate. So ideally, you have the effort required in overtime is reduces. This is the theory. In reality, it will often look like this, like, oh yes, forgotten features. So, oh yes, we need to do this or we need to do that before going live. So you can have some snakes in your project, but you can also have some ladders. So some tasks that you can deliver faster than estimate. So normally it will flatten out. That's your burn down. And I wanted to show you how we do that so it's a short video. Yeah, sorry. Well, what's going to happen is that we put those estimate hours for each task. So we have a work breakdown structure. Big tasks broken down in little tasks, and we fill in the estimated numbers of hours. This is carried over towards our time registration software, which is a FileMaker application. So we have these total budgets over there. And then it's going to run this for a little bit longer. This is a developer registering times, filling in timesheets, basically. Okay? And so they work 2 hours, and this one is important. They select one of the tasks from the work breakdown structure. And what we ask each of our developers is to make their own estimation on percent completed, their best estimate at that time. Like, am I done? Am I halfway done? Am I just getting started? And based on that estimate, they will immediately get feedback about their progress. So in this case, we spent 2 hours on a task that was estimated at 2 hours, so we are 100% done, which is good, which is within. Okay? And I have other examples where tasks take longer or tasks move faster. So this allows you to predict, forecast the time needed to complete the project. If you want to see more of this, come find me at the end of the session. I'm moving on now. Scope creep occurs because of the biases, optimism, overconfidence, and also Claris making it sometimes too easy to add features. The clients know that, they know how easy it is to add a button, but it's not just adding a button, it's also following up on that and documentation and so on. So scope touches time, timeline touches costs, touches quality. You cannot change one without changing at least one other. Okay? If you need to do more work in the same amount of time, quality will suffer or will cost more, etc. How to mitigate scope creep? Talk to your client in terms of versions. Version 1. There are colleagues that talk about the parking lot. We're putting it on the parking lot. I'm not going to do this now, but we don't forget about it either. Version 2. Or reprioritize existing tasks. So if you want this to be built, you need to throw this out. That's how you manage scope. That's how I manage this presentation as well. Sometimes you can simplify requirements, say like, okay, in version 1, we simplify this, make an easy version. And clients like that. If you give them some options, like either we throw out a feature, or we simplify this feature, or we do this. They like that. Like to be in charge. 2 excellent reads on software development, Head First and Lazy Project Manager. Links are in the description. And that was project management. So did we do them all? Communication. That's for another time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.